And the Arizona Oil and Gas Commission's regular scheduled meeting is started. Roll call, Frank Thorwald.
Bill Feierabend.
Anybody on the phone?
Dale Nations.
Stephen Cooper.
We have a quorum. Let's move on to any conflicts of interest. Hearing none, let's go on to the discussion of the minutes of the December 6th public meeting. Is there any changes, any comments on those meeting minutes?
I move we approve them.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second it.
All in favor of approving the, any discussion first? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the December 6th meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Aye. We have a unanimous vote. The minutes are approved. On item 3, rare earth exploration. Dennis, would you please fill us in on this?
The last meeting, I asked the commission to order rare earth to plug and abandon the 12-1, and I promptly wrote them a letter also advising them of their appealable agency action rights. What ensued was a lot of confusion between the operator and myself, and the letter I wrote him came back undeliverable. Apparently they moved. I finally made contact, and long story short, I asked Mr. Haycraft to be on the phone today. Is he on the phone? Is Brad Haycraft on the phone? Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay. So, I think the bottom line is that I'm going to extend the deadline, which I originally gave was March 30th, to April 30th or May 1st due to this mishmash of confusion of addresses. And also, the letter clearly stated the 12-1, and he proceeded to submit a plug and abandon application for his other well, the 28-1. So we had to go back and forth with that and get him to get straightened out with that. I did get an application for plug and abandonment of the 12-1 this morning via email. A hard copy is following maybe today or next week. I think I can move forward now with that, and we can start working on getting the 12-1 plugged and abandoned. In addition, he's agreed to plug and abandon the 28-1 well, which was drilled like July or June of 2018. Just as a reminder, this was a well that members of the public had protested there had been some kind of a spill. ADQ didn't investigate that, but I did. There was nothing out there. Frame of reference, that was the other well, 28-1. So I'm not really asking the commission to do anything unless you have comment or disagreement on my approach. I'm just informing you that we're getting to done, but it's been rather protracted.
A question for Frank Thorwald. Did he finally get to you his new mailing address?
Okay, that's actually an interesting question. There was a discrepancy when I did get a mailing address from. There was a discrepancy between what he put on his organization report form, and I checked with the Arizona Corporation Commission registration, and that was a different address. So that caused concerns, but I understand from what he tells me that the address on the Corporation Commission is out of date, and the address he gave me in Richardson, Texas is correct. The address that's on the Corporation Commission website is in Oklahoma. So I advised him it might be a good idea to talk to Corporation Commission about updating that address.
And which address did you do the mailing to?
I did an address in Dallas, but that office is closed and they weren't taking mail. So it was returned to me. Now, Mr. Haycraft got my email with the attachment of that same letter, but I'm not sure he read it because he sent a plug and abandonment for the wrong well.
The AG's office, what's the rules with regard to keeping us informed of the proper address?
I don't know if there are rules. I think
There is
the organization form.
194. Is it 15 days or 10 days, something like that. So, yeah, he was way out of compliance with that. He did submit a Form 1 organization report. I do have that registered Texas address.
Commissioners, are there any comments or discussion on this? Commissioner Cooper?
Yes, you'll be sending them a follow-up letter extending the date to April 30th?
To be honest with you, they may make it May 1st because that's a Friday. It just, you get lots more wiggle room.
Okay, well,
Unless you feel otherwise.
no, I would send it to the addresses that have been provided to us and also send it electronically and whatever the statute requires us to do, whether it's registered or certified if necessary.
Okay, well, I'll follow the same procedures last time I went certified. And it was emailed also.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on this topic?
I just want to thank Dennis for handling this. Obviously, there are situations that are, you know, a little bit more challenging than other ones, but I think you're doing a pretty good job.
It comes up more frequently than I'd like, not just with this operator.
Thank you, Commissioner
Thank you.
Firebrand. Let's move, hearing nothing else on item 3, let's move on to item 4, report by the Oil and Gas Administrator.
Okay, so Cobalt Group has recently drilled a well that y'all had given some spacing exception to. Granted an application. They completed the drilling the day before some of the severe weather set in just before Christmas up there. So they kind of squeaked by, but everything's fine. They're going to go back in the well by early February, I think, I guess they have till the end of February with the 60-day thing, but early February to run some logs and some other tests. So we're still waiting to see what that well is going to turn out. The Suncor number 1-02, that's one of the deep stratigraphic tests that was done out in Luke Air Force Base for a proposed liquefied natural gas storage facility 20 years ago that got kiboshed by statute. But this is one of the relic wells left over from that time. K. Hovnanian Homes had purchased the property as a developer, and they came before us to get some direction from us on the proper way to cap it off 10 feet below, put the color dye, and so on and so forth. And I'm happy to report that that job is done, and up to the point of I was filing the recordation with the Maricopa County Recorder. They did everything that the commission directed them to do. They didn't have any pushback, didn't have any problem with it. It took a while, mostly because of weather problems. But I have an email confirming that they're going to record this site with the county recorder. So that's good news. I don't have anything to add on Prize Energy Resources other than we just had a hearing and we know the outcome of that. Enterprise Products owns the Adamana facility. They recently had an excess emission that caused a violation of their air quality permit. And they got a notice of violation from ADQ for that to rectify the problem. It seemed like an upset condition to me, but I guess it might have been a maintenance issue. The system worked properly according to the way Adamana has it constructed, but it caused them to have a violation of their permit. They also, per our regulations, notified me within 24 hours of this problem. It was like 15,000 pounds of propane that escaped from a portion of the pipeline between the wellhead and a drying before it goes into storage. The oil, gas, and potash viewers are now in the cloud. I think I announced back in May or June that the governor's office was directing agencies to put as much of their website stuff, mostly for security purposes, on the cloud. So our oil and gas viewer, and there's also a separate potash viewer that doesn't get as much attention. They're both on the cloud. That's just a progress report. That's it.
Any questions from the commissioners? Hearing none, let's move on to the next item, report by the chairman. We have 2 sections on legislation, but I'll just tie legislation into right up. There's been 2 bills, a House Bill 2574 and a Senate Bill 1259, and these are basically rehashes of previous bills that have been put forth in the past to ban hydraulic fracturing in the state. They are poorly written and basically would ban any exploration in the state. And these have been put forth by pretty much by the same group regularly. So I will be calling them and testifying against those bills as we move forward. We have met with two people in the legislature recently. Dennis and I met with Walter Blackman, who's in the House, and filled him in on what was going on up in Apache and Navajo County. And previously, of course, we had met with Sylvia Allen in the Senate and talked about this. We thought they may be here today. They were indicated that they would like to, but we've kept them informed. We also sent them a memorandum dated December 31st, which I believe Dennis had copied you all on, that explained what was going on up in those areas. They were quite happy with that and enjoyed the briefing and the clarification of what was going on in those areas. With respect to the website, I have been trying to reach and communicate with the other state, which has gone dark on us, and I've made repeated calls with respect to that, and I will continue to do that. But with the director of air quality, we have a meeting with AZOGCC staff. I believe it's on the 6th, the first week of next month, to go over the expanded desires for the website, which I believe Dennis has sent everybody. And if anybody has any comments or we've missed anything, please send in your comments so that we can present this. That meeting is going to be, as I said, on the 6th. So if you have any comments prior to that, please send them to me so we can discuss that with the DEQ websites people and make that happen. Any questions so far? Let me move on to the rules. I have requested from DEQ help in the rule writing process, and I've talked to Dennis about that, and what we are going to be doing is to meet on a regular basis, weekly, for a few hours each time to finish up getting these rules done so that doesn't drag out any further. I met with the, just after Christmas or before, I don't remember which, with the governor's staff and discussed the Oil and Gas Commission, and I discussed the rule changes with them and the hang-up and what was going on previously. They said they wanted to see all of the rule changes put together in one group as we finish, so we would submit that after we get the rest of those in place. And the AZOGCC is committed to have the rest of the rule recommendations to us by the middle of the year. They've been restrained by changes in their own states in getting things done for us. There was changes within the governor's office, and the person who was handling natural resources has changed, and the governor's staff has put me directly in touch with the new person, and we have since sent an additional memo to them outlining the one piece we put forward, and it's been indicated to me that they would process that fairly quickly. They wanted to deal with water issues first, and so that's where we have on that. Any questions on that?
Mr. Chair, would that also include looking at our fees in the rule change, or is it still the philosophy that they want to keep everything as low as possible?
I discussed that, and they were very adamant there will be no fee changes. As far as they're concerned, the governor's office, that's a non-starter. So,
Frank, I have a question.
Go ahead.
If you're finished with that.
I am.
Have you gotten any response? I think that there was some movement toward trying to find a potential filling for our vacancy, Oil and Gas Commission vacancy?
Yes, I discussed that, also discussed that with the governor's office, and they asked for some specific information. I said there was applicants in there. They didn't want to make any exception for anybody that did not have enough time in Arizona yet. They asked for different organizations that might have people here in Arizona that had that experience, which I discussed with Dennis, and we sent them that information, and we're going to reach out to those people and ask them if they had anybody that would be interested in being a commissioner.
After
Good.
water.
Hmm?
After water.
Yes, after water, that is correct. Well, no, actually that was a different department, so that group was going to do it right away.
And you don't know of any responses to that request?
I do not. I will keep informed with them, and they've been good about following up, and we've in fact talked twice since our meeting, so it seems like we finally broke the barrier here. And
Yeah, well, at least they recognize we need somebody.
Also, any other questions on that? Procedures manual. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that, and Dennis and I have discussed it, is that when we are no longer here or Dennis is no longer here, that the person who replaces Dennis knows what we've accomplished, doesn't have to go through all the steps that Dennis had to from the previous person. So we've been putting together a procedures manual, and it's not complete, but by the time somebody else comes in here, we will have that. Dennis, could you talk a little bit more about that for a few moments?
Well, in the parlance of ADQ's lean program, this is called standard work. I'll probably expand it to include such things as the typical forms that are filled out. Right now what I have is an outline form or a bullet form on about a half a dozen different key things that we do or I do on a routine basis. For example, Tanya and I work together to create a standard work on running these meetings from the very start, when I sent out a notice to her taking the minutes and blah blah blah. So that's a how-to thing that we put together, but I also have standard work on how to issue a permit. I have a flow chart on how to issue a permit. I have a flow chart on how to do an inspection and the standard work to back that up. I'm going to have a similar, not a flow chart probably, but a similar standard work for processing plug and abandonment applications and so on. But those are examples of what would be an SOP or standard operating procedures. But eventually you guys would get a copy of it. It would be handed out to each individual.
Any questions or discussions on that? Let me add one other point. We had a meeting with the City of Flagstaff that was scheduled for Monday with the changes in the water department and the new head. They have asked to postpone that meeting, and it has now been expanded to the county, and we will be rescheduling that meeting. They may come down here, I may go up there. We just don't know yet. We're talking about having a meeting sometime in February, but we haven't determined the date yet. Any questions on that? Moving on, hearing nothing, to the call to the public. Is there anybody that would like to say anything? Hearing nothing, moving on to item 8, review and consideration of future agenda items. Does anybody have any items that they would like to see on the agenda for our next meeting?
I do.
Commissioner Fireburn.
Okay, there's, Dennis was good enough to email us with that big long attachment on orphaned and abandoned drill holes, and then there's the phone call, I believe, on Monday, isn't it, Dennis?
Correct.
And so the subject kind of, we have two things that kind of bring it together and bring it to the forefront, and I wonder if that's not something that we could spend a little bit of time talking about. However, the conclusions from the email and phone, the phone call, we should just discuss that among ourselves at the next meeting, the orphaned and abandoned drill holes.
Anybody have a problem with that being on the next agenda?
No, not at all.
Then let's add it in there.
Absolutely, I encourage that agenda item. I have a lot to say about that.
Anybody else have anything that should be on the next meeting agenda? Hearing none, any announcements?
I'd like to make one.
Go ahead.
Bill just mentioned it, but there is a conference call about orphan abandoned wells that the AZOGCC is holding. I think I emailed all of you the link to the report they did, as well as the conference call, to make you aware of this. I'm of the opinion that we're at risk of developing an inventory of orphan and abandoned wells that we need to revisit, but I'm not sure what the call is about. I think this is an annual call that AZOGCC puts together, but it's just seeming like it's more of interest to Arizona. At the last inspectors forum I attended, they talked a little bit more about some of the problems from state to state about orphan abandoned wells and trying to get them plugged. Some states have a dedicated fund to do this and other states don't, and the problems that go with it. So it's a subject I think that we need to become more informed on. I will try to sit in on that, but I would encourage any other commissioner that has the time to listen, to dial in and listen to that.
What time is that going to be on Monday?
I have to look it up. I sent that email to you guys. I don't remember. It seems like it's midday.
Would you just send a reminder with a call-in number to everybody?
Okay.
The hours are, what were they, central or? I mean,
I think it's probably central time, yes.
yeah, so the actual numbers of the hours
Well,
different in
it might be
Arizona.
like 10 o'clock Arizona.
Yeah.
Because I think it's out of Oklahoma and that's 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, hearing nothing else, I move that we adjourn.
No executive sessions, or go right to adjournment, huh?
That's correct.
Thank you. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. This meeting of
Aye.
the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission is ended. Thank you.